Hi everybody, happy Tuesday and welcome back to another episode of this and me. Hi. Thank you for being here. Oh, and for putting up with my nonsense. So this week, let's just go ahead and get to it. This week I wanted to talk about, it's not the sturdiest subject matter, but the movies and books I want to do these next 2 weeks are not necessarily religious horror, because when you get into religious horror, then you start getting into like movies that are just about demons and movies that are, it gets a little out there. So I wanted to kind of box it in and make it a little more tight, make it a little more compact. I wanted to focus mainly on movies that are about, in a religious sense, the battle against good and evil. Which I know, but it did leave out a bunch of movies so that we could have a shorter list, a very manageable list. I think we're at 21 movies here. Let's get started. The first one I want to talk about is a movie that was made in 1966 called Manos, The Hands of Fate. And this is just a good cult movie. It's a satanic cult movie. Another note I want to bring up is I wanted to look for movies that I had seen. I can only talk about movies that I've seen. I wanted to look for movies that weren't just about Christianity and the Christian version of hell and demons and all of that. And boy, I found a couple, but this list is overwhelmingly Christian. If you know of any movies that involve other religions, hit a girl up, put them in the links in the comments below, and I'd like to check that out because this was not a fruitful search for me. So Manos, Hands of Fate, satanic cult movie made in 1966. It comes with all of the delicious trappings of a horror movie made in the 60s. And it's been a very long time since I've seen it. I have to revisit it, see if Shudder has it or something. But I just remember the colors. This is a very color-rich movie with the reds and the oranges, and it's a fun movie. It's a good movie. It is. I'm not going to recommend, unless I say otherwise, movies that I didn't enjoy, and I definitely enjoyed this movie. This is definitely a good versus evil kind of movie. Quote good, quote evil, that kind of thing. And then next we have 1968's Rosemary's Baby. I think this is just always going to be a perennial favorite, despite the fact that Roman Polanski is a scumbag. I'm not debating that Roman Polanski is a scumbag. But this is another cult movie, satanic cult, devil baby movie. And because I'm bringing that up, I want to point you, because you know what Rosemary's Baby's about. Come on. We'll talk about the book and its sequel next week. Oh my god, the sequel. So, 1968, Rosemary's Baby. There's another devil baby movie that came out in 2004 called Blessed, and it stars Heather Graham. And it's a good movie. We still do the Satan cult thing, but they get a little more creative with the science side of propagating Satan's DNA. It's interesting, and it's worth a watch. Blessed. 1972, Don't Torture a Duckling. This is a Fulci movie, and this isn't so much supernatural. This is not a supernatural movie, but it is a quote good versus quote evil movie. And why it's interesting is because the evil isn't where you would expect it to be. The good isn't where you'd expect it to be, if that makes sense. If you've never seen this movie, absolutely watch it. It's the ending, I'm sorry, but it's hilarious. It's not supposed to be. It's not meant to be, but it is. That accidental hilarious thing that happens in older movies that maybe don't have the best budget. I love it. That's the spirit of horror for me. 1973, we have the movie The Exorcist. Now, if you have never seen The Exorcist, I want to strongly encourage you not to go in with any preconceived notions about certain things that you've already seen about The Exorcist. In 1973, when this movie came out, it was something nobody had ever seen before. They had never seen graphic violence and horrific effects to this extent before. And you'll see the news reports of people fainting in the lobbies of cinemas, people vomiting, people talking about how they felt like something followed them home. There's a lot of lore around this movie, and I have to tell you, it's a good movie. It stands the test of time, but it is not what the energy around it when it first came out is. A modern audience has certainly seen worse, and people go into it now thinking it's going to be what it was in 1973, and it just isn't. It again, fantastic movie, totally solid, but I mean, it is aged and mellowed in time, if that makes sense. What else do we have? Also in 1973, The Wicker Man. This, I mean, it's a pagan movie. And again, maybe it's just because of who I am. This movie's really great because the fight against good and evil, if you really think about it, and I could make a case for this movie where the people on the island are the good guys, and the guy who is the outsider, he's the bad guy, even though what ends up happening to him would say otherwise. It makes you think, because they have this system going along that's worked for them for years, for many, 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 many years, and they have no intention of ever changing it because, again, it works. It is part of their religion, it is part of their culture and their livelihoods. And the guy who comes in and starts nosing around and wants to stop what's going on, it's possible he might be the bad guy. Just throwing that out there. Okay, so 1976, we get The Omen. And this is a very Christianity-heavy movie. But this is also a good movie. Like, it stands the test of time for me. This is a movie where, God, it's creepy. And it's not so much the supernatural stuff that's creepy, it's the cultists that are creepy, the people. When that babysitter or nanny or whatever is on the roof screaming, Damien, I love you, Damien, it's all for you, Damien, and then she hangs herself. It's like, ah! I think it's a good movie. I think it still holds up. I think it's totally worth a watch. 1977, The Sentinel. I don't see this movie get talked about a lot, which is confusing because it's amazing. This is a movie about, again, Christian heavy, but boy, it's weird. It's really unique. You don't see this one a lot. So it's about a sentinel, a person who has to sit before a door to hell and keep watch. And that's what they do. And in the beginning of the movie, it's, oh God. Okay, so I haven't seen it in a while. I can't remember if the movie starts with the old woman or the old man. I think it's the old man. And, you know, as you're sitting there, you lose a lot of your faculties. You become blind, your eyes become milky, but you are keeping watch, making sure that the door to hell stays closed, nothing sneaks out, there's no, chicanery going on. It's a great movie, and I just wish it got talked about more because it's legitimately creepy, it's legitimately heavy in atmosphere. It's a good movie. We go from 1977 to 1984. 1984, Children of the Corn. This was not so much Christianity. Not so much not, though. Like, this movie, I think, to a modern audience, if you've never seen it before, I think a lot of this movie would suffer with bad effects. It's the story that's great in this. The effects, not so much. The actors, they got really great actors for this movie who, what they're trying to pull off is no easy feat. And I think they all do a really good job. I think this is a movie absolutely worth your time, absolutely worth a watch. It's kind of one of those where if you're a horror fan, you really should have seen this. You really should see this. Give it a go. I understand if you're like at some of those effects, because I am too. 1988. This movie is called The Unholy. This is a movie that I know very well simply because of small-time VHS movie rental places. This movie had an amazing box. The box art on it. So what this movie is, again, Christian heavy, demon movie. But it's a demon that lives in a church. It inhabits a statue of, I think it's the Virgin Mary. men of a certain mindset will be praying before this, and the demon will appear to the men as a devastatingly beautiful red-haired woman. And if you fall under her spell, if you fall to her seductions, then, you know, the beautiful woman thing goes away and she turns into this really creepy looking claymation demon. But the fight, you know, the people who know about the demon, it's a good movie. It's a good movie. It's a B movie, but it is a good movie. Where are we? 1988. We got 3 movies from 1988. So we've got The Unholy, and then next we've got The Seventh Sign. This is another very Christian heavy, but whoa, it's a creepy movie. This one stars Demi Moore, if you've never seen it. And so what happens is Christ has returned, and he is starting to break the 7 seals to bring about the end of the world. And certain things have to happen. And honestly, they made Jesus creepy in this movie. But Demi Moore is someone who, she knows what's going on. And, you know, will she stop it? Will she? Won't she? They always stop it. The end of the world never happens. Except in the movie, This Is the End. I almost put This Is the End on this list, except it's funny. It's not really horror. And there's a lot of demon dick in it, which I'm thrilled about the demon dick, don't get me wrong. But it didn't fit what I was going for, because the end of the world happens. Earth loses in that movie. And I think that's, you know, that's an important mindset to see. In The Seventh Sign, you can see where I'm going with this. So also in 1988, we get The Serpent and the Rainbow. This made it to the list because this is not Christian. This is a voodoo movie. And is it a little, you know, white person experiencing and being the victim of the horrors of people who aren't white? Yeah, it is. But it is also a decent movie. It's not one of my favorites. It's not a movie I would rewatch a whole lot just because the pacing is kind of slow. But there is a scene of Bill Pullman being buried. I'm not dead, don't bury me. That scene alone is worth it. Just go into it knowing through a modern lens, it can be a little problematic, but it's not Christian. So from 1988 to 1994, the miniseries for The Stand. Now, The Stand is a book I will talk about. It is a fantastic book. This miniseries I've seen it a billion times. It used to be a yearly thing, like a yearly week-long event that they would do on the Sci-Fi Channel when I was younger. And me and my family, like my mom and my brother, this was a yearly thing we would sit down and watch, is The Stand. As I'm older, and as my tastes have kind of, I wouldn't say my tastes have refined. I've still got a massive love for cheese and stuff. This movie, God. So I think some of these longer Stephen King works can sometimes suffer from the cheesy ending. And I think The Stand definitely gets that. That isn't so much pounded in your face in the book as it is in the movie. Where, like, it's not super duper happy ending. Like, there's a lot of death. There's a lot of loss in The Stand. And yes, I think this is worth a watch. I know there was a remake, and I'm sorry, I don't care how many sexy Swedes they put in it. I'm not watching it. No. Because this one, if I'm going to watch The Stand, I'm going to watch this cheesy one with Gary Sinise and Molly Ringwald in it. Absolutely, yes, watch it. If you haven't seen it, yes, watch it, while knowing there's some cheese. There's a lot of corniness to this movie, but it is a great story. The book is one of King's best. All right. 1995, we get The Prophecy. This movie, I remember watching this movie not long after it came out, like it came on a cable, and this movie freaked the shit out of me. The rubberized faces with no eyeballs in them. This movie, the story is a little, they could have done a little more for the story, but they were giving so much time and so much energy to Christopher Walken to be the wonderful ham that he is. Worth it just for that. But there is a story. You got to kind of pay close attention to get it, because there's a lot of really bitter angels acting out in this movie. And if you're not paying attention, you might miss why they're bitter and what they're fighting over. So, yes, I mean, not the best effects, but there are some scenes in it where you're like, Jesus God, ugh. Good movie. Okay, 1999, Stigmata. This is a movie, again, quote good versus quote evil. The evil isn't where you think it is. The good isn't where you think it is. You got to get all the way through to truly understand what's going on. I'm trying to resist a lot of possession movies because there are a lot of possession movies, a lot of exorcism movies, and some of them, I'm going to be honest, are absolute garbage. I hate the majority of exorcism movies. The ones on this list, again, unless I say otherwise, are at least watchable. Now, the Stigmata, I remember when this movie came out, and Patricia Arquette still had some of the heat going for her. She was a thing in the 90s, you know? She still had some of the sizzle in 1999 going on for her that she had accumulated for herself in True Romance, which came out in 1993. She's amazing in this movie. But also we've got Gabriel Byrne, who was hot for a hot minute in the 90s, late 90s. And this is a totally watchable movie. It's fun. It's trying to be deep. It's trying to make a point about something. And in 1999, it sure as hell did. I don't know how it'd play now. I'm tainted by it from when it was new. But I think it's a good movie. I think it's worth your time. Also in 1999, also starring Gabriel Byrne, is End of Days, starring Arnold Schwarzenegger. Now, if you weren't there for the coming of the new millennium, I don't think you would understand how much excitement and anxiety was going through society with the coming of the year 2000. And it shows a lot in like the music and in movies and shows. There was a lot of what's going to happen, what's going to change. This is a big deal. The year 2000 is a big deal. And End of Days totally cashes in on that in a very ham-fisted way. Come on, this is an Arnold Schwarzenegger movie. Very ham-fisted, but so fun. They went for it. There's a cult. There's the devil doing his own dirty work. There's also the devil's minions who, are worthless and he's not having it. It's a good movie, you guys. Fun. It's a fun movie. So from 1999, we go to 2001. And this is another movie. I don't see it get talked about enough because this movie is amazing. That movie is Frailty. I feel like I talk about this movie a lot and nobody listens. This movie stars Bill Paxton and Matthew McConaughey. And Bill Paxton, he's the father of Matthew McConaughey. Matthew McConaughey is modern day telling the story. Bill Paxton is our flashback guy. And Bill Paxton has these two young sons, and he gets it in his head that he has been called upon by an angel to kill demons. He is a demon killer. And I mean, you never know. You never get a straight answer, but it does look like he's just killing people. He has become afflicted with some sort of mental illness. He's had some sort of break with reality, and he is just murdering people. And he's recruiting his young sons into this. And one young son is very amenable to this, and one young son is very much not. And the way this movie plays out, it goes from uncomfortable to tense to downright horrifying. This movie is so good. If you haven't seen it, please find it. Frailty. So, 2004, we get Exorcist: The Beginning. Now, this movie, I have to tell you, it's a prequel to the movie The Exorcist. The Exorcist, Father Merrin, he is the guy who shows up to exorcise the little girl of her demon, and he ends up dying in the process. But when they're talking about, we need an exorcist, the church higher-ups, the cardinal and the bishop, they're talking about, well, we don't do exorcisms anymore. Who do we know who even does an exorcism? Well, Lancaster Merrin, because he did an exorcist and it nearly killed him. So we get that story. We get the story of this is how he becomes, what's the word I want? This is how he gets his experience in exorcism. And this movie is also, the story, it again, a little ham-fisted, but there's a Byzantine church in it that's so fucking beautiful, so cool. And it's got Stellan Skarsgård, another hot Swede. But this movie's really good. I think this is a totally watchable movie. This is a movie that it hits the vileness of someone acting outside of themselves. And it's kind of a mystery, you know, who's the person who's actually possessed in this, because we don't really know at first. At first it looks like him, then it looks like him. This is a good movie, you guys. Another exorcism movie, The Exorcism of Emily Rose, made in 2005. This is the last one I'm going to talk about, and I'm only bringing it up because I feel like a lot of people were really affected by this movie. The actress that they got to play Emily Rose in this movie has a talent for contortion. She has a talent for certain facial expressions, what she does. And there's a lot of lore behind this movie of the actress actually scaring one of the cameramen with her face, actually making him think she's actually possessed. The movie itself is okay. I think I've watched it enough times in my life. I've seen it twice. I think that's enough for me. I don't need to watch it again. But a lot of other people, this is one of those movies, other people are like, oh, it's great. And I'm just like, meh. But maybe you should watch it. Maybe you should watch it knowing that they got a really kick-ass actress to really work her ass off and like twist herself and scare people. She does a good job. The movie itself, meh. All right, 2010. Now this movie doesn't really fit into this category unless I do a little bit of mental gymnastics. So let me explain. It's M. Night Shyamalan's Devil. 2010 is when it came out. I'm not a huge fan of M. Night Shyamalan. I don't really like the twist tricks he does. My favorite movie of his is Signs, and I'll watch that movie anytime it's on. I actually really love that movie. It's one of the few movies of his that has rewatch value. A lot of his movies don't have rewatch value once you get the twist. It's like, oh, okay, I don't need to watch that again. Devil is also a movie that has rewatch value. This is a movie I will absolutely watch if it's on. This is a great, great movie. Now, why it's in this category is because we've got quote good versus quote evil. And there's really no good in this movie. What this movie is evil fulfilling its purpose, doing its job, especially in terms of the devil, of Satan. This is Satan doing his job. This is him fulfilling what has been appointed to him, if that makes sense. Even after you know the twist, even after you know it's claustrophobic, it's tense, it's got a lot of backstory, a lot of flashbacks. I think this movie's really good. So the last movie I want to talk about, and I want to skim over that because it's one I don't want to give too much away on, is a movie made in 2013 called Ritual. This is like cult movie, just straight up like scary satanic cult movie. I started with one, I ended with one. This is a, out of towners traveling, happen upon an underground cult. Things go very bad. It's a good movie. It's very, it's got a good pacing to it, is what I like. Because some of them can be very slow. It takes a long time to get things built up. There's always like the you've got to have the obligatory, like, oh, we're a happy couple, so let's have sex on the beach and make sure you get a lot of shots of boobies in it. This one doesn't totally buy into that, but it's a fun movie, and it is a good scary movie. This is one of those movies that would be really good for a date night. Like one of those old-fashioned Friday night, let's order pizza and watch a movie together. This is a great movie for that. So that'll be it for that part today. Tune in next week when I try to put together a list of books. There will be more books on this than there were last week with the Monster Mash books. But thank you, as always, for being here and watching my nonsense. I hope the world is treating you well. I think it's starting to get a little better, and I hope it stays better. And I will be back with you next week, and hopefully the clicker is in a good mood because it seems to be working better with the new phone, you guys. So I'll see you next week, and that's it for me. Bye!